All right, sorry for the delay, guys. We had a bit of a technical issue, which we've worked out. We're going to record it and post it. I've got with me my good friend Dean Kilby, who I've mentioned in the posts about my health and weight loss journey I'm on at the moment. And I've got him on the line with me at the moment. Thanks for joining me, Dean.
Pleasure. You could have just called me.
I could have.
We're going to let everyone else listen in. This is funny.
Yeah. Thanks for joining me. I just wanted to, a lot of people were interested in what I posted about, the health program that I'm on with you. And why I'm doing it, I suppose, like I'm just sort of hitting middle age. My father had a heart attack about my age now. And although I haven't smoked for 30 years like he did, and I train and do exercise and stuff as well, I've been sort of on and off fitness-wise over the 48 years I've been alive, from 100% full on into it to not at all to bits and pieces as we go, And it's not like, I'm pushing maximum density and having trouble, but I just put on a little bit of weight and I feel uncomfortable. So, you helped me immensely with the stem cells in my knees a few years ago. I've got brand new knees thanks to you.
That's still good.
Yeah, they're great. I train no problems. I'm doing weighted squat jumps and stuff with no dramas at all. So that's been great. So a fair few people were interested, so I thought I'd get you on and just explain, what we're doing, and if there's any questions. People have sent me some questions that I have for you about what we're doing, and we can get them answered and share them with the other guys. Because my hope is that, there's obviously a lot of people on my Facebook page that are like me, my age, going through the same thing. There's a lot of musicians on my page too that have got plenty of downtime and don't do much in between. And when they are at work, they're drinking and eating when they can. So thanks for being on.
Pleasure. What questions do you want me to answer?
I'll get them. The first one, well, this is a question from me, really. Why and how do we gain weight?
Because you eat too much.
Well, I'm eating probably. That's the thing, because now I'm sort of getting now how people say I don't eat that much, and compared to how often I eat, I'm actually eating more now.
Yeah.
But a lot less rubbish, obviously, and a lot less late at night, and just out of boredom snacking and whatever else. So I feel like I'm eating plenty.
You are. You're eating a lot of food on that program. So there's a difference between the volume of food that you might be consuming versus the total number of calories. Mm-hmm. So the energy that you're consuming in terms of total caloric intake. So look, for the food industry, I won't get political, but over a long period of time, the general way of relating to food is one of where certain food products occur to us, like that's what's going to give us energy. And those foods are also comforting. So if you think of energy requirements of an athlete, and everyone aspires towards athletes and we admire them and so forth, but there's a phenomenon called the athlete's paradox, where you take someone like Michael Phelps, for example. I don't know how many calories that guy had to consume, somewhere up 7,000-8,000 calories a day. Who knows? I don't know. But he was renowned for eating a number of Big Macs during the day. But you and I don't move to the degree that these super athletes move. We all want to be like them. We all want to copy them, but we just don't perform in life like the degree that they do. So us mere mortals need to be responsible for the total number of calories. And it's really, really simple. If you eat more calories than you burn, you're going to gain weight. That's just physics, right? And those laws of physics apply with everyone, so it may occur to you like you're eating well and you're not eating much, but little things can sneak in. You might put a little bit of mayonnaise on your sandwich. You might have an extra couple of teaspoons of sugar in your coffee. You might have, the point is that there's a lot of unconscious eating that happens, particularly when we're stressed, when we're tired, when we're dealing with the ordinary circumstances of life. And, a lot of people might have, for example, well, let me go through the day. And, we wake up in the day and people are eating pretty much dessert all through the day. So you might have sweet stuff for breakfast. And then what happens is it spikes your insulin levels, and, then you have a crash and you're feeling like you need something else to eat to pick yourself up. So you have a coffee and a biscuit or morning tea break. And then you might have lunch, a couple hours, 2-3 hours after that. It might be a sandwich, piece of fruit, juice. For a lot of people that might occur to them like that's a pretty decent, healthy meal. What people don't understand is that each slice of bread is like the equivalent of 4 to 5 teaspoons of sugar when we're talking about the response it has on your insulin levels. So if you spike your insulin levels really high at lunch, for example, eating these high glycemic index foods, and everyone's been convinced that lunch is the time to eat carbohydrates. So in the belief that you'll burn it off during the afternoon, it just doesn't happen that way.
That was my next question, was going to be like, yeah. So then what you're saying about calories in versus energy burnt, and obviously, like, how much am I going to have to train to be able to like, lose weight or look like a machine and still be able to eat whatever I like?
Yeah, the logic is if you gain weight just by eating more, then you'll be able to lose weight by eating less.
Yeah, or by training.
Right, and it just doesn't work that way. So you can't exercise off a bad diet. You just can't. So what people don't really have a good kind of understanding of is the complete, what's the word? You in 1 minute, you can shove so many calories in your face. But if you understood what it took to burn that off, that number of calories off, you just wouldn't put it in your face. I mean, it's to think that, oh yeah, I'll eat the donut now and I'll burn it off tomorrow, or I'll go for a run later today. You're just kidding yourself. You're not going to be able to burn that off. So for example, if you're, I don't know, I live on the harbour. I've, neighbours that go kayaking and so forth. They might be out on the water kayaking for an hour and a half. That's a decent sort of workout. Hour and a half to 2 hours, they might burn something like, 500 to 550 calories in that time frame. Decent amount of time that it's taken, the commitment, the effort to go do that. That's one Big Mac. One Big Mac is like 540 calories. So it doesn't take much. I mean, I came back from the US and I was in quarantine for a couple of weeks, and people brought some food around for me. And in one of the boxes of groceries was a packet of chips. And I don't buy snack food, and so I don't tend to eat those foods, but someone brought it for me, so I'm going to eat it. So I put a movie on, and in the space of a movie, an hour and 40 minutes or so, I ate this 170 gram packet of chips, which is about 920 calories. And I was still hungry.
Well, that's what I've been finding as well. The foods I've been eating now, I'm not, like, I could eat nuts and olives and, jats and cheese and all that, and red wine and all that sort of stuff I was eating at night. And I could just keep eating all night. Yes. It was ridiculous, especially after I had 2 or 3 wines or 2 or 3 beers, and then whatever happens, sorry, I've had 2 or 3 beers now. Let's just go get a food platter rocking and get this done properly.
So there's all these things like, people aren't conscious to when they're eating, how much they're eating, what they're eating, And particularly if you have alcohol, I mean, that messes with your satiety regulation. So you're just going to eat like, you know, you're not going to regulate your hunger properly when you've got too much alcohol in you. So bottom line is we put weight on by eating too much or too many calories. But what people also have to understand is how you get that amount of calories in you is by calorie dense foods. So people tend to overconsume carbohydrates and in particular sugar. So liquid calories are a really big problem for a lot of people, whether it be soft drinks or juices or things like that. So you want to be mindful of even the sugar you're putting in your coffee or tea, dairy products and dairy drinks. There's, you know, it all adds up, and it's not the, you know, liter of ice cream that you smashed last night it's going to cause you to gain 10 kilograms. It's the small treats that you allow yourself to have every single day over a period of time. It all accumulates and adds up. So we gain weight. Okay. How do we actually gain weight? If you overconsume sugar and refined carbohydrates in particular, it's going to spike your insulin levels. So insulin is the only hormone in the body that can produce or create the formation of what we call triglycerides. Triglycerides is the fat storage molecule. Right. So not only does insulin cause the formation of triglycerides, it also channels that for storage into your fat cells, your fat tissue, or we call that adipocytes or adipose tissue. So the insulin itself, if you eat the sugar or the carbohydrates, will spike up. If you eat combinations of food like sugar and fat, these are foods that we all tend to get addicted to. These are, you know, it mimics dairy. And when you're an infant on your mother's breast, you know, it's good to be addicted to the feeding because it's the most rapid growth period of your life. But we came off the boob and we still consume dairy and foods like that, right? So if you look at the combination of carbohydrates and fat, they very rarely go together in nature. You know, you'll have foods where there's a combination of protein and fat or protein and carbohydrates, but you rarely see the combination of carbohydrates and fat. Right. We put them together as human beings in the form of cakes and biscuits and chocolate and pizza, all those things. And we get addicted to those foods. They satisfy very powerfully a part in the brain. It's very nurturing. And it's very, it kind of mimics like when we're on the boob. It was a very safe, nurturing place. So if you think about the times when people binge eat, they call it emotional eating or whatever it is, it's when they're stressed and overwhelmed and they don't feel safe. And, you know, so you want to feel safe and you want to feel nurtured, and those foods temporarily offer that. There's another mechanism we won't go into, but why we get addicted to it and why those foods don't satisfy that reward center in our brain. You know, the dopamine receptors, you know, we won't get into that, but fundamentally, if you're spiking your insulin with carbohydrates and sugar and eating fat at the same time, it's a perfect combination, a perfect storm for the formation of triglycerides, which is made up of 3 fatty acids, 1, 2, 3, combined to a glycerol molecule. The fatty acids is derived from the fat that you eat. The glycerol is derived from the carbohydrates. Perfect storm, fat storage. Right. Now, the problem is when you're talking about exercise is if you're still eating carbs and sugar and still have a relatively, on average, higher insulin levels throughout the day, that insulin will lock the fat into your fat tissue. It'll lock the triglycerides into your fat tissue. So not only does the insulin store it, it locks it in. So you might be in the gym working your ass off and your ass isn't coming off because you're drinking Gatorade whilst you're on the treadmill. So that glucose it blunts fat oxidation. So you just won't even burn the fat on your body. And if you've been overweight or obese in particular for a period of time, we're pretty certain that you're almost going to be a 100% carbohydrate burner. So any level of activity where you start to get a little bit tired or fatigued, your body doesn't switch to using fat as a fuel source.
Yeah.
your brain just kicks in and forces you to go find some carbohydrates to put back into you. You know, it's that's why it's tough. It's you know, there's physiological, there's neurological processes that are going on. There's past traumas that people have to deal with. And even if those past traumas, whether they be physical or psychological, have actually been handled, by the time you get to that size, you know, you're stuck in a state of metabolic derangement where your hormones are just so far out of whack. It takes a very high level of intentionality, a very unbalanced nutritional approach, and unbalanced because there's certain macronutrients you need to control to correct that hormonal imbalance. So that's why it's so hard for people. You know, you're fighting against thousands of years of evolution. The body was designed to put fat on, wasn't designed to take it off so readily. You're living in an environment that just doesn't support you to be well. You know, there's bad food choices everywhere. You've got friends and family and everyone telling you what you should do and what's the right way, and it's really confusing. And then, you know, the information from the authorities over the past 30 to 40 years, you know, mostly around exercise, like exercise is the answer. It's just not. It's just
I mean, you saw
know,
that on the post. Like, there was a lot of replies from people saying, you know, good luck with the fitness regime. I was like, oh, not actually doing anything different than what I was doing.
Yes.
Yeah,
and there's
a big thing too, the melding of health and fitness into, it's like it's the same thing. Like you can't be healthy unless you're fit, and vice versa.
They do go together, but people need to understand that they're two distinct phenomena. Health
I was trying to say.
And fitness.
Yeah.
So, you know, when they're collapsed and people want to get healthy, the first action that they take out is something in the world of exercise, whether it be a gym membership, they hire a personal trainer, or they try and run, which is hard, particularly if you're carrying extra weight and you've got sore joints, and then you quit early, right? And your body biochemically isn't even in the right situation to recover from those workouts. So it makes it really difficult for people. But that's been the only answer, is move more and eat less. Now, the problem with that is if you just eat less, for example, you'll lose weight. You know, if you just decrease the number of calories, you'll lose weight. But what kind of weight are you losing? Are you losing just fat? Or are you also losing muscle mass? Are you, when you're eating less, is your diet nutritionally complete? Are you getting all the micronutrients that you need for your cells to function properly? So it's not necessarily the case that you're getting healthier. You know, skinny people, doctors are putting skinny people on blood pressure medications, on anti-diabetic medications all the time. It's so skinny doesn't mean healthy, right? So my commitment is always one of health and vitality. And I say vitality because you want to optimize the health of this skin bag body of yours, so you can perform optimally in life in the areas that really matter to you. You want to do that with a sense of vitality and productivity that has a meaningful impact on your life and what you're committed to.
Yeah, right.
Fitness is important, particularly, you know, exercise and fitness. It's important for brain health. It's important for a just general sense of well-being. But there's very little to no scientific evidence that suggests exercise is important for fat reduction.
Yeah, right.
It's 100% dietary, which kind of flies in the face of what we've historically considered to be true around all of this.
Yeah, right. And so then is what you were saying then about like what you're eating on those calorie reduced diets, like eating less or whatever and training more, you'll still lose. Well, especially eating less, you'll still lose more. But what I found is as soon as I've stopped that, I can walk past a Krispy Kreme and put 2 kegs on, like no problem at all.
Yes.
And that's and a lot of people say that it's so hard to lose the weight, but it's so easy to put it back on. So is there any difference between what I've done in the past, just losing weight and, you know, cleaning some stuff up in the diet and whatever, and what I'm doing now.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I think people need to understand. One is biochemically, if you lose weight, you can lose weight in many different ways. There's a plethora of different diets and all that sort of stuff. And many people have lost weight in the past. What they've found is they might have put it back on again, and that's called yo-yo dieting. And you know, you get to our age, and you know, people have gone through that cycle a few times, and sometimes we just get really resigned, and it's like, screw it, this is just the way that I am.
Yeah.
And people need to love me just how I am. But you know, you're not satisfied, you're not fulfilled with how you are, and you don't like yourself, and you know that you haven't operated with integrity and given it your all.
I just get bending over to tie my shoelaces up, and it's just, I've got to hold my breath a little bit to do it. I'm like, this sucks.
I know, tying shoelaces up. I had one woman, I said, what do you really want to accomplish working with me? She said, I'd like to see my vagina again.
Life goals.
Yeah, exactly, right. You know, but this is the reality of life, and we're just human beings with this body, right? And you can lose weight, like I said, in many different ways, just by eating less. You eat less calories, you're going to lose weight. That's just how it's done, right? There's no magic, no secret to that. However, when you get to the weight that when you lose it, every different weight loss protocol or program or diet, you know, you end up with a different kind of hormonal profile. So it may be the case that you lost the weight, but you didn't reverse your, what we call hyperinsulinemia.
Right.
You know, the average elevated levels of insulin that the pancreas tends to secrete.
Right.
Or you haven't reversed your insulin resistance. They tend to go hand in hand, hyperinsulinemia and insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is when your cells and tissues, which include your muscle, your liver, your fat tissue, even your brain, has insulin receptors that no longer respond. So, you know, they're not so sensitive to the insulin that your pancreas is secreting anymore. So then your pancreas has got to secrete more insulin. And so hormonally and biochemically, you may not have corrected the underlying cause of the weight gain in the first place. So then when you go back to eating a normal diet, you'll put the weight back on. Right. The other problem is that people need to understand is body composition. And that's the muscle to fat ratio. Pardon my voice, I've been talking all day. But the muscle to fat ratio is one where if you lose weight, diets across the board, you'll always lose some muscle mass. Mm-hmm. And generally speaking, it doesn't matter what the diet is, even the standard ketogenic diet that, you know, a lot of people are doing these days, the clinical data suggests that 25% of the weight lost is from lean mass. Yeah, right. And when I say lean mass, I mean muscle and even protein robbed from vital organs that are required for optimal health. So that's the last thing we want. We don't want you to lose lean muscle mass. Now, historically, who's led this whole field is the fitness industry. So this is what they would have you do, is go into the gym and do resistance training to build that muscle, because you don't want to lose the muscle because that's the primary calorie burner, et cetera, et cetera. Yep. If you lose the muscle, your what we call your basal metabolic rate decreases. Yep. And then when you go back to a normal diet, it becomes easier for you to put the weight back on and even harder to take it off the next time round. So if you want to burn fat, you know, let's look at the standard ketogenic diet where people restrict carbohydrates and they increase fat intake, and they supposedly drive their body into a state of ketosis, and that's all that means is your body is burning fat as a fuel source. Yep. I don't tend to advocate that approach for people who want to lose weight and be healthy and vital. If you do, you want to connect with someone who's really smart around how to do that, to guide you. There's a number of things to be responsible for. It can be dangerous. So you just want to be really careful. But fundamentally, if you're restricting carbohydrates, you've exhausted the muscle glycogen stores. So you don't have that immediate energy source in your muscles. So if you go to do some exercise, you're not going to be able to fuel that increase in energy expenditure. What you could, it can be counterproductive. You could end up catabolizing that muscle, and your body takes the protein from your muscle, breaks it up into amino acids, and in your kidneys and liver, converts certain amino acids into glucose, and we call that gluconeogenesis. And it's just not the result that you want. So you want to protect that lean mass. Generally speaking, diets across the board, people will lose a good portion of that weight is from their lean mass. And that's the problem. That's what contributes to the yo-yo dieting effect. If you then, eat a little bit and you've lost muscle mass and you haven't corrected your hyperinsulinemia, you're going to put the weight back on really fast.
Yeah, I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people, because I think, most of the people I know that have been on some sort of diet end up putting it back on. And that makes a lot of sense, especially for me. Like I've got no, some people have said, you've lost weight before, just do what you were doing before. I have, but it came on pretty damn quick. So obviously what you're saying rings true for me, and that's why I came to you and said, hey, let's get this, let's do this, coach me on this. And so I can turn that around, so it doesn't just automatically revert back to the normal, put weight back on again.
Yeah.
So I get back to
eating. And the commitment with you, Trevor, and with all my clients is, yes, we'll get you to the target weight, the ideal weight for you, and reverse some of the health issues that you might have some concerns around.
Yep.
And when I say health issues, I mostly always refer to metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is excess fat around our belly. That causes increase in inflammation everywhere. And the inflammation causes tissue degradation. It's one of the reasons why your knees needed some help with the stem cells that we're able to support you with, because in the background context of inflammation, your tissue's normal regenerative processes just can't happen. So, or they're compromised at least. And then the net effect over time, given any biomechanical malalignment or overuse, is one of tissue degradation. And you end up with osteoarthritic joints, bone on bone. It's painful. It limits your mobility. And osteoarthritis is the leading cause of pain and disability in the country. So it costs the country, I don't know, $25 to $30 billion. So it's a big deal. But the intention is for you to correct your hormonal imbalance, also correct your understanding of foods, and there's a lot of learning that takes place. Then when we get you to your ideal weight, we want to transition you out of that unbalanced diet back towards, and we do it in a very structured way so as not to shock your pancreas and put you into a state of metabolic confusion. Then we want to stabilize you there, and that takes a period of time. And you want to think of it like the weight loss is endocrinological. So we're very much manipulating your hormones just through nutrition. And then the weight will come off, right? But in that process, what happens is your body gets used to burning fat as a fuel. By the way, I don't coach people on a high-fat diet. For the clients that I take on, it's reversing metabolic syndrome. I restrict fat as much as I restrict carbohydrates. You've got enough fat for us to burn through. You don't need to consume more. So, but we'll train your body to start burning its own fat reserves. And that's why my dieters can lose weight so fast. Men, you'll lose 2 to 3 kilograms a week with no exercise, right?
You just say that
you'll lose 2 to 3 kilograms of fat every week with no exercise.
Well, and it's today I told you I trained for the first time today, but I haven't I normally train probably 3 times a week, and that was the first time I've trained since I started earlier in the week. And even just through, I think this is the 5th day I've been on this, and the first thing I noticed was waking up in the morning just brighter and less cloudy. And also just my rings on my finger, like that'd take a good couple of minutes to get my, not a couple of minutes, but a good 30 seconds or so to be able to screw them on and off, like each finger, especially this one. Sometimes I'd be like, just turn. And now it just can't, like that's in 5 days. Just, I'm not weighing myself, so I don't know how much weight I've lost, but I just feel less swollen, if that makes sense.
Yes. I mean, what happens in the beginning is you lose water. You lose whatever, a kilo, a litre or 2 of water in the beginning. And that's because that water's tied up in your muscles with the glycogen. So when we restrict carbohydrates to put you into ketosis, by the way, putting yourself into ketosis is no big deal. Right? People, I think, online, and they've made it out to be harder than what it really is. So, and it's got nothing to do with fat consumption. So eating more fat does not put you into nutritional ketosis necessarily. If you restrict carbohydrates to less than 50 grams a day generally, and create a sufficient calorie deficit, which we've done with you, you're eating like 800 calories a day. Your body is, at some point, after about 3 days, you will exhaust your muscle glycogen stores. And then your body's looking for, okay, where am I going to get the energy from? And it's either going to rob it from your muscle, or it's going to rob it from fat. And it does both synergistically. What we want to do is protect your muscle and the protein in your vital organs, all your organ systems, including your immune system. We want to protect that by ensuring that you get adequate amounts of protein in your diet. Not high amounts, but adequate, just what your body needs. And we want to make sure that that protein is of the highest quality, it's highly absorbable. And, I utilize products that have been clinically demonstrated to protect your lean mass during a weight loss protocol over a period of time, where men, I tolerate about 2-3% loss of lean mass, women up to about 5% loss of lean mass. But it's you will lose a little bit, but it's certainly nothing compared to 25% with other standard hypocaloric diets. So that's the real key. In doing that, we put the body into ketosis, and then the key is to keep it in ketosis until you become what we call ketone adaptive. And that's when your cells restructure themselves and they increase the amount of enzymes that are required to better utilize the ketones as a fuel source. After about 3 weeks or something, you've turned your body into a fat burning machine. Right. And then it's the discipline that it takes to stay on protocol until you hit your target weight. And that's however long that takes. For men, it's 2 to 3 kilograms a week. For women, it's typically 1 to 1.5 kilograms a week.
Yeah, right. Cool. What else did I have? One of the reasons I mentioned I was doing this as well was because of all that's happening now with COVID-19 and all that sort of stuff. And I do get asthma and that sort of thing. And I'm speaking to you before, I know that increased weight is also a factor in getting that and it being, a bad thing for you. What's the go with that? How does increased weight link to your immune system?
Yeah. Very relevant now. So there's a couple of, one, you want to be responsible for the amount of inflammation in your body. Everything we do causes inflammation in our body, but especially a bad diet. So if you're eating a lot of sugar, a lot of refined carbohydrates, a high fat diet, a lot of processed foods, you're generating a lot of inflammation in your body. That inflammation suppresses a number of processes, including tissue regeneration. So that really suppresses that. All our organ systems start to fail over a period of time. you still wake up the next morning. So people tend not to make changes in their life. You know, they still wake up and they.
You've gone. Hello.